Back on the Perseverance, engineer Wu Jin Nam worked frantically at his station. The data from the Villani city painted a clear picture, and it was not good news. "Captain," he called as Hyunwoo entered the bridge, "I've been analyzing the energy readings from the moon. The Villani power core is failing faster than they think." Hyunwoo moved to look over Wu Jin's shoulder at the technical readouts. "What does that mean?" "Their systems are compensating for the power loss by drawing more energy from backup sources," Wu Jin explained. "But that's making their energy signature even stronger. Instead of being barely detectable, they're now broadcasting like a beacon. How long before their power fails completely? Maybe 6 days. When it does, their life support will shut down." Wu Jin's voice was grim, but that's not the worst part. He switched to another screen showing wave patterns spreading out from the moon. These energy pulses are traveling faster than light through subspace. Anyone with the right equipment can track them back to their source. Lieutenant Young-ho Seo looked up from the communication station. "Captain, I'm picking up increased chatter on coalition frequencies. They're definitely aware something is happening in this system." "Can you decode their transmissions?" Hyunwoo asked. "Working on it, sir." Young-ho's fingers flew over his controls. "Their encryption is good, but not perfect. Give me a few hours." Dr. Jin-A Choi had been quiet since returning from the moon, studying historical records on her personal tablet. Now she looked up with worry on her face. "Captain, I've been researching the coalition species in our databases. What little information we have matches what Casimira told us, but there's more." She activated the main screen, showing star charts with overlaid information. "Based on our long-range surveys and the few encounters we've had with other species, the Coalition controls approximately 40% of this galaxy. They have thousands of ships and command dozens of species as either allies or slaves." "And humanity?" Hyunwoo asked. "We control maybe 2% of the galaxy. We have about 300 ships total, and most of those are exploration or transport vessels, not warships." The numbers were sobering. Even if humanity wanted to help the Villani, they were vastly outnumbered. Commander Taimin studied the tactical displays. "We might be outgunned, but we're not helpless. Human ships are fast and our weapons are accurate. If we had to fight, we'd lose," Hyunwoo said bluntly. "Maybe not the first battle, but eventually they'd overwhelm us." Lieutenant So Young looked up from her science station. "There's something else, Captain. I've been analyzing the Villani technology we observed. Their systems are incredibly advanced, centuries ahead of anything we have. If we could study their science..." "You're talking about the benefits of contact," Dr. Mi Young-han said, speaking for the first time since their return from the moon. As the ship's psychologist, she had been quiet, observing and thinking. "But we need to consider the costs as well." "Meaning?" "Meaning that if we help the Villani, we're not just saving them. We're declaring ourselves enemies of the Coalition. We're putting all of humanity at risk." The bridge fell quiet as everyone considered her words. It was true. Any action they took here would have consequences far beyond this system. "Captain," Young-ho called suddenly, "I've broken their encryption. You need to hear this." The speakers crackled with alien voices speaking in harsh, guttural tones. The universal translator worked to convert the sounds into words. Energy signatures confirmed. Classic Villani technology patterns. Fleet. Commander reports ready to deploy. Orders are to leave no survivors this time. Arrival estimated in 10 days. The transmissions continued, but Hyunwoo had heard enough. "How big is this fleet they're talking about?" Young-ho worked at his console for several minutes. "Based on the communication protocols and ship identifications, I count at least 50 warships. Maybe more. 50 ships against one underground city," Taemin said grimly. "It's overkill." "They don't want to take any chances," Dr. Choi observed. "After 3,000 years, they've finally found the last Villani survivors. They're going to make absolutely sure they finish the job." So Young turned from her station. "Captain, there's something else. I've been monitoring the Villani power systems remotely. Their main reactor is becoming unstable. If it fails catastrophically, it would take out everything within 50 kilometers," Wu Jin finished, "including any coalition ships that happen to be in orbit." Hyunwoo paced the bridge, thinking. The situation was impossible. The Villani were doomed whether the coalition arrived or not. Their power would fail in days, and if it didn't kill them, the arriving fleet certainly would. "Sir," Dr. Han said quietly, "perhaps we should consider that this isn't our fight. We have a duty to our own species." "And what about our duty as human beings?" So Young asked. We're talking about watching genocide happen right in front of us. A genocide that happened 3,000 years ago, Dr. Han replied. We're seeing the end of it, not the beginning. There's nothing we can do to change what already happened. But we can change what happens next, Taemin said firmly. Those are people down there. They have children. Young Ho looked up from his station again. Captain, I'm receiving a transmission from the Volani city. They want to speak with you. On the main screen, Kesmira's image appeared. Behind her, Hyunwoo could see other Volani moving through their crystal corridors. Captain Kim, she said, her mental voice carrying clearly through the speakers. We have detected the coalition fleet approaching. We know you cannot fight them. We would not ask you to. What are you asking? Hyunwoo replied. Kesmira held up a small crystal device that glowed with soft blue light. This contains our entire history, our art, our science, our philosophy. Everything we learned in 50,000 years of civilization. We want to give it to you. Why? So that someone will remember we existed. So that our knowledge will not die with us. Her large eyes seemed to look directly at Hyunwoo through the screen. You humans remind us of ourselves when we were young. You explore, you learn, you try to do what is right. Perhaps you can use what we learned to build something better than what we had. Dr. Choi leaned forward. The knowledge in that crystal could advance human science by centuries. We know, Kesmira said. But that is not why we offer it. We offer it because you came when you heard our call. You listened to our story. You cared about the fate of strangers. On the screen, a young Volani appeared beside Kesmira. She looked like a smaller version of the elder with the same luminous eyes and graceful movements. This is Kesistara, my granddaughter, Kesmira said. She has never seen the stars except through our ancient records. She was born in these caves and will likely die in them. Kestara stepped forward. When she spoke, her mental voice was clear and strong despite her youth. We do not ask you to die for us, she said. We ask only that you remember we lived. The young Volani held out the crystal to the screen, as if offering it directly to the humans watching. Hyunwoo stared at the image. Around him, his crew stood silent. He thought about the coalition fleet approaching with overwhelming force. He thought about the 847 Volani waiting to die in their underground city. He thought about humanity, still young and hopeful, spreading through the galaxy with dreams of a better future. Then he thought about what it meant to be human. Kesmira, he said finally, how many transport ships would it take to evacuate your people? The elder Volani tilted her head in surprise. Captain, I'm asking how many ships we would need to get all of you off that moon. You cannot, she said. Your fleet is too small and the coalition fleet is too large. You would only die with us. Let me worry about that, Hyunwoo said. How many ships? Kesmira paused, calculating. Perhaps 6 of your larger vessels. But Captain, we cannot ask you to— You're not asking, Hyunwoo interrupted. I'm offering, he turned to his crew. Young Ho, send a priority transmission to Earth and Colonial Command. Tell them we've found survivors of an alien genocide and we need immediate assistance. Sir, Dr. Han said urgently, this could start a war. Then we'd better make sure we win it, Hyunwoo replied. Captain Hyunwoo Kim sat in his command chair, watching the stars through the main screen of the UES Perseverance. His ship was one of humanity's newest exploration vessels, sent to map the outer edge of known space. For 3 months they had found nothing but empty systems and dead rocks. Captain, we're getting some strange readings, said Lieutenant So Young Park from her science station. She was young for her rank, but Hyunwoo trusted her skills. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls as she studied the data. What kind of readings? Hyunwoo asked, leaning forward in his chair. Energy signatures from the 3rd moon of this system. They don't match anything natural I've ever seen. So Young's voice carried excitement and confusion. The patterns look artificial, sir. Hyunwoo stood and walked to her station. On the screen he could see wave patterns that looked too regular to be natural. They pulsed in a steady rhythm like a heartbeat. Could it be some kind of beacon? Asked Commander Taemin Lee, the ship's tactical officer. He was older than most of the crew, with gray hair and careful eyes that always watched for danger. Maybe, So Young said, but if it is, it's using technology I don't recognize. The energy levels are incredible, but they're deep underground. Hyunwoo thought for a moment. Their mission was to map and survey, not to investigate mysterious signals. But something about this felt important. His gut told him they needed to look closer. Take us into orbit around that moon, he ordered. Let's see what we can find. The Perseverance moved toward the small gray moon. It looked dead from space, covered in craters and dust, but the energy readings grew stronger as they got closer. "Captain," So Young said, her voice tight with excitement, "I'm reading massive structures under the surface. This isn't just technology, it looks like a city, maybe several cities. Life signs?" Yunwoo asked. So Young worked at her controls for several minutes. Hard to tell with all this interference, but yes. Faint biosigns very deep underground. Dr. Jin-A Choi, the ship's historian, looked up from her own station. "Sir, there are no records of any civilization in this system. According to our star charts, this whole area has been empty for thousands of years." "Well, someone forgot to tell the locals," Taemin said with a dry smile. Hyunwoo made his decision. "Prepare a landing team. Full exploration gear and universal translators. If there's intelligent life down there, we're going to make contact." 2 hours later, Hyunwoo led a team of 6 down to the moon's surface. The gravity was light, making each step feel like a small jump. They followed So Young's scanner readings to a spot where the energy signatures were strongest. There, So Young pointed to what looked like a natural crack in the rock. The readings are coming from directly below. They lowered themselves down through the crack with ropes and lights. The narrow passage opened into a vast underground space that took their breath away. Ancient buildings stretched out in all directions, carved from the living rock and covered in symbols that glowed with soft light. "My God," whispered Dr. Choi. "This place is huge. It must go on for kilometers." The architecture was beautiful and strange. The buildings curved and flowed like water frozen in time. Bridges made of what looked like crystal connected towers that reached up toward the cavern ceiling. "The air is breathable," reported engineer Woo Jin Nam, checking his instruments. "And there's definitely technology here. Some of these systems are still active." They moved deeper into the underground city, their footsteps echoing in the empty streets. Everything was covered in a thin layer of dust, but the buildings showed no signs of damage or decay. "Captain," So Young called from ahead, "I'm reading stronger life signs this way." They followed her through a series of corridors that led deeper underground. The walls here were covered in more of the glowing symbols, and the air felt warmer. Finally, they came to a large circular chamber. In the center stood several tall figures watching them with large, bright eyes. They were humanoid, but clearly not human. Their skin was pale and seemed to glow slightly in the dim light. They were tall and thin, with long limbs and graceful movements. One of them stepped forward. When it spoke, the words came not as sound but as thoughts that appeared directly in their minds. "Welcome, travelers from the stars," the voice said inside their heads. "I am Kesmira, elder of the Vallani. We have been waiting so long for someone to find us." The universal translator on Hyunwoo's belt buzzed as it tried to process the telepathic communication. After a moment, it began to work, turning the mental words into speech they could all hear. "I am Captain Hyunwoo Kim of the human ship Perseverance," he said carefully. "We detected energy signatures from your city. We came to investigate." Kesamira tilted her head, studying them with those large, luminous eyes. "Humans," she said, and there was something like wonder in her mental voice. "We have not encountered your species before. You are young, and yet you came when you heard our call." "Your call?" Hyunwoo asked. "Our power systems are failing," Kesamira explained. "After so many centuries of silence, they have begun to send signals again. We did not expect anyone to answer." So Young stepped forward. "How long have you been here?" "Time is difficult for us now," Kesamira said sadly. "But by your measurements." "Perhaps 3,000 of your years. We have been hiding here since the fall of our people." "Hiding from what?" Taemin asked, his soldier's instincts alert. Kesamira's expression grew dark. "From those who destroyed our civilization, from those who hunt us still." The chamber fell silent except for the quiet hum of ancient machinery. Around them, more Vallani appeared from the shadows. Hyunwoo could see children among them, their eyes just as large and bright as the adults. "How many of you are there?" Dr. Choi asked gently. "Here?" 847 souls, Kesamira replied. "In all the galaxy?" "We are the last." The weight of those words settled over the human team. They were looking at the final survivors of an entire species, hiding in the dark depths of a forgotten moon. "Tell us what happened," Hyunwoo said. "Maybe we can help." Kesmira looked at him for a long moment, and he felt her thoughts touch his mind, reading something in him that satisfied her. "Yes," she said finally. "Perhaps you can, but first you must understand. What we tell you will change everything. Your people will have to choose. Stay safe in ignorance or risk everything for strangers. Hyunwoo thought of his crew above, of humanity spreading slowly through the stars, still young and hopeful. Then he looked at these ancient, graceful beings who had lost everything except each other. Tell us, he said. The response from Earth came faster than anyone expected. Within 18 hours of Hyunwoo's transmission, space around the moon began filling with human ships. Admiral Sangmin Kang arrived first, his flagship leading a battle group of 12 warships. Behind them came transport vessels, medical ships, and engineering platforms. But what surprised everyone most was what followed. Hundreds of civilian ships of every type imaginable. Captain Kim, Admiral Kang's voice came through the communication system. I received your transmission. I also received about 3,000 requests from civilian captains wanting to help. On the main screen of the Perseverance, Hyunwoo could see the Admiral, a man in his 60s with steel-gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Sir, I wasn't expecting this kind of response, Hyunwoo admitted. Neither was I, Admiral Kang replied. But when your footage of the Volani survivors reached Earth, something happened. Merchant captains started volunteering their cargo ships. Tourism operators offered their passenger vessels. Even mining platform crews wanted to help. Through the bridge windows, Hyunwoo could see the growing fleet. Sleek military vessels moved alongside bulky freighters and converted passenger liners. It was the largest human fleet ever assembled, and it had come together in less than a day. The news networks are calling it humanity's conscience, Admiral Kang continued. People saw those images of the last survivors hiding in caves, and they couldn't stand by and do nothing. Dr. Sujin Yoon, a specialist in alien psychology who had arrived with the Admiral's fleet, explained the human response. We've always identified with the underdog, she said during a briefing in the Perseverance's conference room. Throughout our history, some of our greatest moments have come when we stood up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves. Commander Taemin studied the tactical displays showing both the human fleet and the approaching coalition forces. We've got numbers now, but how do we match up in terms of firepower? That's the question, Admiral Kang replied. The coalition ships are older but proven in combat. They're designed for overwhelming force rather than finesse. Captain Seok Jin Park, who commanded the fighter squadrons, leaned forward. What about their tactics? From what we can determine, they rely on massive frontal assaults, the Admiral said. They've been the dominant force in this part of the galaxy for so long that they've never had to develop sophisticated strategies. They're bullies, Dr. Yoon added. They're used to their enemies either surrendering immediately or being crushed quickly. They've never faced prolonged resistance. Lieutenant Young-ho had been monitoring coalition communications continuously. Sir, their fleet is still 8 days out, but they're already broadcasting demands for our surrender. They seem confused by our presence. Confused how? They keep asking why we're here. They can't understand why one species would risk itself for another. Their transmissions suggest they think we must be planning to claim Volani technology for ourselves. Dr. Jin Choi nodded. It makes sense. For 3,000 years, they've ruled through fear and self-interest. The idea of genuine altruism is foreign to them. Down on the moon, the evacuation had begun. Human teams worked alongside Volani volunteers to move people and essential equipment to the transport ships. Engineer Woo Jin led the technical team studying Volani systems, trying to understand their technology while also preparing to shut down the failing power core safely. Their science is incredible, he reported during one of the daily briefings. Some of their energy systems are hundreds of years ahead of ours. But more than that, everything they built was designed to last. These systems have been running for millennia with minimal maintenance. Can we use any of their technology? Admiral Kang asked. Not immediately, but if we have time to study it properly, it could revolutionize human science. Their medical knowledge alone could save millions of lives. The evacuation proceeded smoothly, but everyone knew time was running out. The coalition fleet was only 6 days away, and they would arrive with overwhelming force. Casimira spent most of her time on the Perseverance now, working with human scientists and sharing what knowledge she could. Her granddaughter Kesitara had become fascinated with human culture, spending hours talking with crew members about Earth and the human colonies. Your people are remarkable, Casimira told Hyunwoo during one of their conversations. In all our years as peacekeepers, we rarely saw such unity of purpose among a species so young. We're not unified about everything, Hyunwoo replied honestly. But when something matters enough, we come together. And this matters to you? The fate of strangers from a dying race? Yes, Hyunwoo said simply. It matters. The coalition fleet arrived earlier than expected. Contacts on long-range sensors, Lieutenant So-young reported. 53 ships moving in battle formation. Admiral Kang's voice came through the comm system from his flagship. All ships to battle stations. Civilian vessels to move behind our defensive line. But as the coalition fleet approached, something unexpected happened. Instead of attacking immediately, they stopped just outside weapons range and opened communications. The image that appeared on the main screen was intimidating. A large Krex commander with scarred scales and teeth like knives. When he spoke, his voice was like grinding rocks. Human fleet, the Krex said through the universal translator. You are in violation of coalition space. Withdraw immediately or face destruction. Admiral Kang responded calmly. This system is not claimed by any government according to galactic law. We are conducting lawful evacuation operations. You harbor enemies of the coalition, the Krex commander snarled. The Volani are criminals and terrorists. Surrender them immediately. The Volani are refugees seeking asylum, Admiral Kang replied. We will not surrender them. For a moment, the Krex commander seemed at a loss. His scaled face showed confusion more than anger. You would fight for them? He asked finally. You would risk your ships and your lives for aliens you just met? Yes, Admiral Kang said simply. Why? The question hung in space between the two fleets. On the Perseverance bridge, Hyunwoo watched the coalition commander's face. The alien genuinely seemed unable to understand the human position. Because it's the right thing to do, Admiral Kang answered. The Krex commander's expression shifted to something like contempt. Foolish mammals. Your nobility will die with you. You have 1 hour to surrender or we will destroy you all. The transmission ended, leaving both fleets facing each other across the void. All ships report ready for battle, came reports from across the human fleet. Merchant captains who had never fired a shot in anger stood ready beside veteran military officers. Coalition fleet is moving into attack formation, So-young reported. On the tactical display, the enemy ships arranged themselves in a classic overwhelming assault pattern, a massive wall of firepower designed to crush resistance through sheer force. Remember, Admiral Kang broadcast to all ships, we're not trying to destroy them. We just need to hold them off long enough to complete the evacuation. Fight smart, fight together, and we go home. Captain Seok-jin Park led the fighter squadrons forward as the coalition fleet began its attack. The small, fast human fighters danced between the larger enemy ships, striking at weapons and engines rather than trying to destroy them outright. The battle was fierce but brief. Human tactics, developed through centuries of warfare among themselves, proved superior to the coalition's brute force approach. The enemy ships, designed to overwhelm weaker opponents, struggled against coordinated attacks from multiple directions. But more importantly, something else happened during the battle. For the first time in 3,000 years, the coalition fleet faced an enemy that fought back effectively. Not only that, but an enemy that was fighting for someone else. After 2 hours of combat, the coalition fleet began to withdraw. They had lost several ships and accomplished nothing. The human fleet, while damaged, remained intact and determined. This isn't over, the Krex commander transmitted as his fleet pulled back. The coalition will return with more ships. You cannot protect them forever. We don't need forever, Admiral Kang replied. We just need today. As the enemy ships disappeared into hyperspace, the evacuation resumed. Within 6 hours, the last Volani had been moved to safety aboard human ships. The ancient city was empty except for automated systems that would ensure the power core failed safely, rather than explosively. Standing on the bridge of the Perseverance, Hyunwoo watched the moon shrink behind them as the human fleet moved toward safe space. Beside him, Kesmira and her granddaughter looked at the stars they thought they would never see again. Where will you take us? Kesmira asked. Home, Hyunwoo replied. We're taking you home. 6 months later, the space around Kepler 438b buzzed with activity. The planet had been chosen as the new home for the Volani survivors, a world with vast oceans and gentle continents that reminded them of their lost homeworld. But more than just a refugee camp was taking shape here. Construction platforms built a massive space station in orbit. its design incorporating both human engineering and Vallani architecture. The station would serve as the headquarters for something entirely new in the galaxy. Admiral Hyunwoo Kim, he had been promoted after the evacuation, stood in the observation deck of the new station, watching ships arrive from across human space. Beside him, Elder Casimira looked out at the activity with wonder in her large eyes. "I never thought I would see so many species working together again," she said, her mental voice carrying hope for the first time in years. Below them, the station's main docking bay welcomed ships from a dozen different worlds. Human vessels worked alongside ships from the Altarian Trade Republic, the Centric Mining Consortium, and other species that had heard about humanity's stand against the Coalition. "They're calling it the New Galactic Accord," Dr. Jin A. Choi reported as she joined them in the observation deck. 17 species have already signed the charter, and more are asking to join every day. The new alliance had grown from something simple, the realization that the Coalition could be opposed. For 3,000 years, smaller species had lived in fear, either serving the Coalition or hiding from them. Humanity's actions at the Vallani moon had shown that resistance was possible. Captain Moon Soo-jang led the joint engineering teams that were rebuilding Vallani technology with human improvements. "The Unity network is almost ready," he reported during the daily briefings. "Once it's active, we'll have instant communication across 50 star systems. The Unity network was the Vallani's greatest gift to their new allies. The quantum communication system would allow the Accord species to coordinate their defenses and share information instantly across vast distances. More than that," added Dr. Soo Jin-yoon, who had become the chief cultural advisor for human-alien relations, "the Vallani are teaching us their conflict resolution techniques. Their telepathic abilities let them understand the real causes of disputes between species. This was perhaps more important than any technology. For 50,000 years, the Vallani had kept peace in the galaxy, through understanding rather than force. Now they were sharing that wisdom with species who desperately needed to learn how to work together. Young Kesatara had adapted to her new life with remarkable speed. She split her time between the Vallani settlement on the planet below and the space station above, serving as a bridge between her people and their human allies. "The children are the key," she told Hyunwoo during one of their conversations. "Vallani children born here will grow up knowing humans as friends and partners. They will help us build something better than what we lost." Not everyone in the galaxy was happy with these developments. The Coalition had spent the past 6 months trying to isolate and intimidate the new alliance. They had attacked 3 Accord member worlds, but each time the response had been swift and coordinated. "They're learning that we're not the same as their previous enemies," Commander Taemin observed. He now served as the Accord's military coordinator, helping different species learn to fight together. "We don't surrender when they show up with a big fleet, and we don't fight alone." The Coalition's latest attempt at intimidation had backfired spectacularly. When they attacked the Centauri mining station, human, Altarian, and Vallani ships had responded together. The battle had lasted less than an hour, with the Coalition fleet retreating after facing coordinated tactics they had never encountered before. "Their leaders are starting to panic," Lieutenant Young-ho reported from the Intelligence Center. "Our monitoring stations have picked up increased chatter about the human problem and Vallani contamination spreading through the galaxy." Engineer Woo Jin had become fascinated with Vallani science and spent most of his time working with their technical specialists. "Their approach to technology is completely different from ours," he explained to anyone who would listen. "They don't just build machines, they create systems that work in harmony with their environment." This philosophy was already changing human technology. New ships incorporated Vallani energy systems that were both more efficient and more sustainable. Medical advances based on Vallani. Biology had eliminated several human diseases and extended lifespans significantly, but the greatest change was in human thinking itself. "We're not the same species we were a year ago," Dr. Hyojin Kim observed. She had joined the station's staff to study the psychological effects of the human-Vallani partnership. "Knowing that an entire civilization can be destroyed by hatred and fear has made us more conscious of our own actions." The proof was visible everywhere on the station. Human and Vallani children played together in the gardens. Scientists from different species worked side by side in the laboratories. Even the station's design reflected this new cooperation. spaces that were both functional and beautiful, built to last for generations. 20 years after first contact, Admiral Hyun-woo Kim stood once again in the observation deck of what was now called New Harmony Station. The view had changed dramatically. Instead of a single station, an entire complex of interconnected platforms orbited the planet. Below, the Vellani settlements had grown into cities that blended seamlessly with the natural landscape. Elder Kesmira, now much older but still graceful, joined him as she often did. Her granddaughter Kesitara, now an adult and serving as the first Vellani ambassador to Earth, stood between them. "Do you remember what you told me the first day we met?" Kesmira asked, her mental voice carrying amusement. "I said we would take you home," Hyun-woo replied. "And so you did. But this is not the home we lost. This is something better." Through the observation deck windows they could see ships from dozens of species coming and going. The coalition still existed, but their power had been broken. Too many of their former subjects had joined the Accord, and their economy could no longer support their massive fleets. "The galaxy is changing," Kesitara observed. "The young of all species are learning to work together instead of fighting each other." Hyun-woo nodded. In the past 2 decades, the Accord had grown to include over 100 species. Wars had become rare, and when conflicts did arise, they were usually resolved through negotiation rather than violence. "What will you do now?" Casimira asked. "You humans have achieved everything you set out to do. You saved my people, changed the galaxy, and created lasting peace." Hyun-woo smiled. "Now we keep building. There are still species out there that need help, still problems that need solving. The work is never finished." On the table beside them lay the memory crystal that Kesitara had offered to humanity so long ago. It no longer contained just Vellani history. It had grown to include the stories of all the Accord species. Their combined knowledge and wisdom accumulated over thousands of years. "The most important thing we learned," Kesitara said, picking up the crystal, "is that no one has to face the darkness alone." She looked out at the stars, no longer hidden and afraid, but free to explore and dream and build a future that was brighter than anything her people had imagined in their 3,000 years of hiding. "We found each other," she continued, "and that made all the difference." In the distance, a human exploration ship prepared to depart for uncharted space, continuing the work that had brought them together in the first place. But now they traveled not as a single species spreading through the galaxy, but as partners in something larger than themselves. The Vellani were no longer forgotten and alone. They had found something they thought lost forever, a future, and humanity had gained something equally precious, proof that their greatest strength was not their technology or their weapons, but their refusal to abandon those who needed them most. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders yet to be discovered, and for the first time in 3,000 years, all its peoples could explore it together. Casimira moved to the center of the chamber, her long fingers touching a crystal panel on the wall. The symbols around them began to glow brighter, and suddenly the air filled with images and sounds. "This is how we share memories," she explained to the humans. "What you will see happened long ago, but for us the pain is still fresh." The images showed a galaxy full of light and life. Beautiful worlds spun in space, connected by streams of ships that looked like flowing ribbons. The Vellani cities were everywhere, not just underground, but floating in clouds built on ocean floors and stretching across vast plains under alien suns. "We were the peacekeepers," Casimira's voice said as the images changed. "For 10,000 years we kept harmony between the species of this galaxy. We created the Great Accord, laws that protected the weak and guided the strong." Dr. Choi watched in amazement as the memories showed meetings between dozens of different alien species. The Vellani served as mediators, their telepathic abilities helping them understand the thoughts and feelings of all sides. "It was a golden age," Casimira continued. "Wars became rare. Trade flourished. New worlds were settled peacefully. We thought we had built something that would last forever." The images shifted, showing 3 distinct alien species. The first were large reptilian creatures with thick scales and sharp teeth, the Kreks. The second looked like giant insects with multiple arms and compound eyes, the Vorthak. The third were partly machine, partly organic beings with metal implants covering half their bodies, the Nexari. These 3 formed what they called the Dominion Coalition, Kesmira said, and her mental voice carried old pain. They claimed to support the Great Accord, but in secret, they planned our destruction. Commander Tae-min stepped closer to the images. His military training helped him understand what he was seeing. They were building weapons, he said. Yes, Kesmira confirmed. For 50 years they prepared. They built ships designed for one purpose: genocide. They created viruses that would kill only Volani. They made bombs that could crack the crust of planets. The images showed hidden factories on remote worlds, secret meetings in dark spaces, and fleets of warships gathering far from Volani space. But why? So Young asked. If you were keeping peace, why did they want to destroy you? Because we were in their way, Kesamira replied. The Coalition wanted to rule the galaxy, not share it. Our laws protected smaller species from being conquered. Our peace prevented the wars they needed to expand their power. Engineer Wu Jin studied the technical details in the memory images. This is incredibly advanced technology, he muttered. Some of this is beyond what we can build even now. The Volani were old when these other species were still learning to use fire, Dr. Choi observed. They had thousands of years to develop their science. The images changed again, showing a massive celebration. Millions of beings from hundreds of worlds had gathered around a beautiful blue planet covered in crystal cities. The Festival of Unity, Kesamira explained. Every 50 years, leaders from across our civilization would meet on our homeworld to renew the Great Accord. It was the most important ceremony in our culture. Hyunwoo felt a cold feeling in his stomach. He could guess what was coming. They attacked during the festival, he said quietly. Yes. Kesamira's mental voice became heavy with grief. They waited until our leaders, our best minds, our most important people were all in one place. Then they struck with everything they had. The memory images exploded into scenes of destruction. Warships appeared in the sky like dark clouds. Cities burned under weapon fire. The crystal spires that had stood for millennia crumbled into dust. In one day they killed 3 billion Volani, Kesmira said. Our government, our military leaders, our greatest scientists and artists, all gone. Our homeworld became a ball of burning rock. The humans watched in horrified silence as the images showed Volani ships trying to escape, only to be hunted down by coalition forces. Some fought back, but they were outnumbered and had been caught completely by surprise. What about your other worlds? Dr. Choi asked. The attacks were coordinated across the entire galaxy, Kesamira replied. Within a week, every major Volani colony was destroyed. The coalition had spent decades mapping our territory, learning our defenses, preparing for this moment. Tae-min shook his head in disgust. It wasn't war. It was extermination. The few survivors scattered, Kesamira continued. Some tried to rebuild, but the coalition hunted us relentlessly. They wanted to make sure no Volani would ever challenge them again. The images showed the aftermath. Empty worlds where cities once stood, coalition ships patrolling former Volani space, and small groups of survivors hiding wherever they could find shelter. My grandmother was among those who escaped, Kesmira said. She led our people here, to this forgotten moon, where we have hidden for 3,000 years. But the coalition must know this place exists, So Young said. How have you stayed hidden so long? We shut down all our technology except the most basic life support, Kesamira explained. We made ourselves invisible even to our own sensors. But now our power systems are failing, and we had to reactivate some of our equipment to survive. Which means you're sending out signals again, Woojin realized. Yes. And if we can detect them, so can others. Hyunwoo felt the pieces falling into place. The coalition is still out there, isn't it? They control much of the galaxy now, Kesamira confirmed. They divided up Volani space between them and enslaved or destroyed any species that opposed them. They patrol the old trade routes, always watching for any sign of Volani survivors. Have they found other groups like yours? Dr. Choi asked. Kesamira's sadness deepened. Over the centuries, we have lost contact with all other survivor communities. Sometimes we would detect distant signals, other Volani trying to call for help. But the signals always stopped after a few days. The implications were clear. The coalition was still hunting down and killing any Volani they found. How do you know all this if you've been hiding? Tae-min asked. We maintained some long-range sensors, Kesamira explained. We needed to know if danger was approaching. Through them, we have watched the galaxy change. We have seen new species emerge and either join the coalition or disappear. What about humanity? Hyunwoo asked. Have you been watching us? You are very new, Kesimira said, and for the first time there was something like hope in her mental voice. You appeared in space only recently, but you spread quickly. The Coalition has noticed you, but they seem uncertain about what you represent. Uncertain how? You fight differently than other species. You do not surrender easily and you protect your own fiercely. The Coalition prefers to attack those who cannot defend themselves effectively. Dr. Choi looked thoughtful. You mean they're bullies? They pick on species that won't fight back. In your terms, yes. And from what we have observed, humans definitely fight back. The memory images faded, leaving the chamber lit only by the soft glow of the Volani symbols on the walls. The humans stood quietly, processing everything they had learned. So that's the galaxy we live in, Hyunwoo said finally. Ruled by 3 species that committed genocide and then spent 3,000 years hunting down the survivors. And now your reactivated systems have given away your location. So Young added, yes, Kesimira confirmed. We estimate that Coalition scouts will detect our signals within days if they have not already. A full attack fleet will follow soon after. How long do you have? Taemin asked, his tactical mind already working on the problem. Perhaps 2 weeks. Perhaps less. The chamber fell silent again. 847 people, the last of their kind, waiting for death to find them in their underground refuge. Hyunwoo looked around at his team. He could see the same thoughts in all their faces. They had come here as explorers and scientists. Now they faced a choice that would define not just their own lives, but possibly the future of their entire species.